Sippin' that Red Kool-Aid yet? Sippin' that Red Kool-Aid? I have seen some. Okay, let's get started. Yesterday, Jay Bills did a preseason ACC Power Rankings. And guess who's number one on that list? Number one on the list is NC State. Now, this is just adding to the pile of preseason number one picks in the ACC that state has gotten. And I personally don't understand why everybody's picking NC State to be like this great, awesome team next year. Yeah, they have all their starters back, but let's look into what they've done. Um, they were fourth in the ACC last year, behind a UVA team that they probably shouldn't have been behind, a Duke team that overachieved, and a Carolina. That's all right because Carolina was actually really really good last year. Um, the NCAA run they made was, I think everybody's looking at that as a spark plug to making State number one. I think State, at least out of the top four, State probably pause. I think I made UVA. I switched UVA and Florida State. I think Florida State was the three seed, and Florida State played over their heads about three times last year, and all those times were against Carolina and Duke. Don't get me started on Florida State. I'll leave that alone. UVA was fifth seeded. So let's get back to this NCAA run. Okay, so NC State Garden has the 11 seed in the Midwest region, and they were matched up against number six seed San Diego State. Now, a lot of us saw that upset as soon as they posted that, as soon as they announced that, because State may not have the best record out of the two, but State has been more tested than the two. State has had to play Carolina. At this point, State has played Carolina three times. I think they played Duke at least once. They played Florida State, I think, at least once. Um, they've been tested. UVA was making noise in their conference, and Maryland was good for a scare or two. San Diego State wasn't getting that same kind of thrill in their, I think, Mountain West. They were not getting that same kind of thrill in their conference. So that had State run away from the get go. Um, then in the round 32, State plays Georgetown, and based on the way they play, I thought that favored State. Georgetown doesn't really play with a huge post presence like that. At least in the recently, they still do the Princeton system, but they didn't have that true center to complement the Princeton system in these past few years. So C.J. Leslie had a field day, and Georgetown couldn't make enough perimeter shots. They played sloppy. They just didn't have enough, and I think a lot of us saw that coming. Well, not a lot of us, but a few of us saw that coming and put State into our Sweet 16. So State, yes, they were on a tear going to the postseason, but I don't want to go overboard. It was a Sweet 16 run that a lot of us saw coming based off of who they were playing and the way that they played relative to the way that their opposition played. Not saying that State's not bad, but I don't think State's going to be the best in the ACC next year, especially since Carolina's still here. Carolina, Roy Williams has Carolina head coach 18-1 against NC State and 5-0 when he's a head coach at Kansas, I think, against NC State. Clearly, Roy doesn't like State, and Roy is not gonna take loss start. He's not gonna start taking a bunch of losses to State this next year either. Um, Roy knows how to beat this team. I know when Roy was at Carolina, State was the team to beat, and State was beating Carolina all over the place. So that's where it comes from, I think, in my opinion. But we've always had the talent to beat State, and we've built States behind year after year after year, game after game after game. The game can be played at Raleigh, the game can be played in Chapel Hill, the game can be played in Atlanta. We were beating State. Um, a couple things I learned about the Atlanta game. I think a lot of people saw the Atlanta game has a shine of has like a silver lining for State basketball. State played us all the way to the final buzzer. Not buzzer. Yeah, they did. pretty much. We beat them by 2. Kendall Marshall, the winning play is when Kendall Marshall goes in. He likely did give a little bit of a shoulder to Alex Johnson, but at the same time, Alex Johnson came flying in there, and it wasn't like he was set. So it was, to me, a correctly no call. It was both of them were doing wrong, so you can't award one or the other. And Kendall Marshall got the shot off, hit the backboard, and went in. So a couple things I learned about that game. John Henson, I always felt when we played State at my time here, he was the best guy on the floor on either team because he would take CJ Leslie's lunch just about every time we played them. And he was out because Maryland was pulling an early Creighton by injuring his wrist and not knowing how to play defense. Learning how to play without John Henson wasn't easy. McAdoo came in, he did a great job. But CJ Leslie pretty much played him for the freshman he was. CJ Leslie had a virtual field day. And if a CJ Leslie field day in a weekend post didn't beat Carolina, I think that speaks volumes. And your Scott Wood, he's supposed to be your big 3-point threat. As long as Reggie Bullock's on the court, you're not going to see him making much noise. And Reggie Bullock's coming back, y'all. He ain't going anywhere. And don't y'all still have Howell to foul? I mean, the way he fouls is absurd. And I don't think that's going to change if he's coming back. So, you can say what you want. State is going to be good. They're going to be a tough out. But I don't think they're best in the ACC quite yet. Because Carolina's still in the way. I do think that State definitely has a chance to beat Carolina and Raleigh, but I don't think State has a chance in the Dean Dome meeting this year. Expectations, like I was saying, State, they're predicted to be number 1 in the ACC, but the thing about State basketball is it always does what you don't expect it to do. They're expected to go far next year. That gives them easy a chance to flop over and not play as well. Versus last year, nobody saw State coming, or a lot of people didn't see State coming, and all of a sudden they fly to the Sweet 16. Or they made that great run in the ACC Championship when they took Carolina without John Henson to the brink. So that's all I have to say. If you want to sip that red Kool-Aid, that's fine with me, but I'm going to be sipping that Carolina blue Kool-Aid because I still think that Carolina has what it takes to win the ACC. Not saying we will, but I'm just not buying State yet. All right, Sports Recap fam, I'll talk to y'all later.